Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
Shares for beginners.
Phil Muscatello and Finpods are authorised reps of Money Sherpa. The information in this podcast is general in nature and doesn't take into account your personal situation.
I know a lot of people with it, not only on the saving side of things, but thinking about, like I did, looking and seeing if abroad you can earn more as well as save more. But I met, people in finance, people, working in commodities, lots of industries who had these nice expat contracts with housing covered and international school for their kids covered. And I think that is a way to really fast track your savings and also have an adventure in the meantime.
G'day and welcome back to Shares for Beginners. I'm Phil Muscatello. What happens if the rug is pulled out from under you? This can happen financially, physically, spiritually. Your life can change in an instant. And how can you supercharge your financial independence with Geo-arbitrage? Bali's not only about bintang t-shirts and partying. Joining me at the mic today is Amy Minkley. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Phil. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no worries. Thank you very much for coming on. And I'm just disappointed you're not in Bali today. You're in the US of A.
I am. I'm usually in Bali 9 or 10 months of the year, but happen to be with my folks now. Okay,
so Amy is an international speaker, financial independence event producer, and devotee of financial independence. We'll talk about, I just wanted to talk about the FabX video that you shared with me, and we'll put a link to this in the blog post as well. But just tell us the story about what happened to you when you were 12 years old.
Yes. When I was 12, my life changed overnight. So I, had a very happy childhood. My parents were happily married, I thought. I never saw them fighting. So I felt really happy and safe and secure. And then when I was 12, my dad sat me down on the, living room couch and told me he was leaving. My parents were getting a divorce, and it was a shock to me. Later, I found out he had a younger girlfriend, and, he was going through a midlife crisis, and the financial situation of our home changed overnight. My dad had money, but, he said he couldn't fully pay child support. So my mom and I really struggled. We had to sell our family home. We moved to a different state. My mom went back to college. And suddenly I felt like the poor kid at school. I really struggled with confidence and worthiness issues. It had some harmful effects, but there were also some really good effects as well. Like I really learned how to save. And, in high school, I had 2 jobs. I was figuring out, I was earning $4.25 USD an hour, but working those 2 jobs, calculating on my calculator in secret, working at the budget theater. Once the movie started, how many hours did I need to work to buy my first car, which, you kind of need in the US, especially where I grew up, to get to work and those kind of things. And then, in college, I paid, I had 2 jobs, went to a state school, lived in budget apartments, just really always was trying to figure out, worked as a residential assistant RA in the dorms, trying to figure out how could I afford, to pay my college and my rent without getting into a lot of debt, which a lot of American students get into. And I managed to get out debt free, and it took me 5 years. So, those basically with my father leaving, I had this sense that I needed to be responsible for my own finances and that money could disappear at any moment. So I needed to be really money savvy and save as much as I could.
It's really interesting, though, that you reacted that way. A lot of people might react in different ways, but your emotional reaction was a financial one. And that happened at a very early age for you.
Yes. My mother at the time, I was really her support system. And she would share with me, she was going through heartache and shock. And also her biggest concern was really about money. And so she shared a lot of this money concerns with me. And then I saw her reading a lot of financial books because she had depended on my dad to take care of that. And she didn't really know much. And she was trying to educate herself. And she gave me a book in high school. I think it was called Girls Just Want to Have Funds. So it was a play on the Cyndi Lauper song, but with a D, funds. And so I read that, and, and I started investing, as soon as I got my first job out of college in retirement accounts.
Did you take it to extremes? I've heard a lot of people, you wanted to get through paying your debt very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of people going to extremes, like living on the cheapest, poorest quality food as well. Were you a fire extremist like that?
I would say, yeah, I didn't eat cheap, poor quality food, but I definitely took it to extremes. There was a lot of things that I denied, certain events that or things that would have been memorable. Like, for example, I did go to London. I remember I didn't want to go up in the Tower of London because maybe it was 11 quid at the time. It wasn't even, I don't remember how much it was, but it seemed like that was a lot at the time. And so, there's memorable things that I missed out on because I didn't want to spend the money to do them. And so I do regret being kind of cheap sometimes. I did do a lot of international travel in my 20 years abroad. But mostly I was a budget traveler. So I stayed in some not so nice places.
Met the local cockroaches around the world.
I probably did. Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you describe your savings habits at the time as fear-based savings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was always focused on saving, and even when I had built up my savings, I still didn't feel safe. My savings rates ramped up through the various jobs. I worked in Asia for 20 years. So initially in Japan, 20 years ago, I was only saving $5,000 a year. And then I went to Singapore and I was saving $37,000. This is USD a year. India, and I was saving almost $60,000 a year. And I still did not feel safe. And I was investing all of this, And then I did take a gap year and I was blissfully happy. And I met my Australian partner during that gap year. And, I probably had a decent sized nest egg that I didn't have to go back to work right away, but fear drove me back to working in a job that I really wasn't happy, but I still had that need because at that job I saved about 90,000 USD a year. And I was really unhappy, and my relationship was suffering, my health was suffering, but I was focused on that savings rate. So definitely it was a fear-based, habit.
And how did you end up with a better relationship with money? Is that what you're talking about when you say you turned your life around to have a better relationship with money, was it about the jobs that you were doing and your own happiness? Yes.
I think when I went to Bangkok and I'd had my kind of best life and sabbatical time in Bali and met my partner there and really saw a new realm of possibility and so many opportunities there, because before I was an international school teacher and I had loved that, but I didn't have much balance. And then when I went to Bali, I saw a lot of entrepreneurs and really inspirational, motivated people doing really cool things, but having a little bit more agency over their time and their choices. That motivated me to kind of see a different realm of possibility, but still it takes a while to, get something off the ground. And so I went back to that job and I was unhappy there. But it really was discovering the FIRE movement, the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, and having a better understanding of how much money do I really need. And, I know how much it costs me to live in Bali. And I have a pretty decent sized nest egg that I had invested and saved over the 20 years abroad, that's going to continue to compound and grow. So if I can find a way to earn enough to pay my living expenses in Bali, I don't have to keep contributing, this $90,000 worth a year savings and work till I'm 65. I can have a little bit more freedom to try entrepreneurship, to try life in Bali and pursue something different, like a next chapter in my life.
Well, let's talk further about geo-arbitrage. What's the bigger picture with geo-arbitrage? How does it work and how did it work for you?
Well, I would say, when we break apart the word geo-arbitrage, for listeners who may not know, it's choosing geographically places that will support your ability to save. A lot of people, will be digital nomads and they will earn in Aussie dollars or US dollars and they will live somewhere cheaper. I would say, use geo-arbitrage on the earning side of things because as a teacher in the US, you don't earn much. But I lived in some expensive countries like Singapore. People wouldn't necessarily consider it a geo-arbitrage destination because the cost of living is high, but my pay was also high and I was able to live pretty affordably there because my schools would pay for the rent. And then I would, and they call it house hacking. I would rent out the extra bedroom, even though I had free rent, and I did that in India too. So so it's finding ways to grow the gap, between what you're earning and what you can, and then what you're spending, and then investing the gap in the middle. And I think, choosing destinations that are more cost effective, and it doesn't have to be international. It can just be moving from Sydney to Brisbane's cheaper, right? Or a lower cost of living area.
Anywhere out of Sydney.
Exactly. Anywhere out of Sydney. So, a lot of people have done that in the US too. And I'm sure in Australia with COVID, people are working from more remote locations for the cost of living.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? The opportunities that the COVID epidemic brought out for people, and the idea that you can be a digital nomad, that you can have a job, or you can be a contractor, or you can do something, but you can basically do it from anywhere in the world.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I love too. I mean, I lived in New Delhi, India, which it was a great environment, a great school, but the pollution was horrible. And
it's terrible pollution over there, isn't it? It's one of the most polluted cities in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love India, but I don't know, those international schools, I worked really hard. And so now I'm teaching online a lot less hours per week, and I can set my schedule. And so it's nice that I can live in Bali.
So is that what you do? You teach online, is it? You still teach online?
A little bit, not a lot. I mean, I feel like I do have a nest egg that I don't have to contribute a lot to it. But, if I can really teach 1 hour a day, I've covered my cost. So I'm spending myself about 55 USD a day. My partner spends a similar amount. We share accommodation and we live really well. I mean, we eat out twice a day. I go to yoga. I go to all the classes I want. I mean, we're not living the cheapest Bali existence for sure. We have a luxurious life, but we're also not living the most expensive place we could live, but we have a nice place. And so, if I can teach 1 hour a day, that can cover my cost in Bali.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, clothing is very cheap. I mean, bintang T-shirts are very cheap, aren't they?
That's what I wear every day.
That's right. So we'll get on to talking about the events that you produce, but you're obviously speaking with many other people in this area of financial independence and especially geo-arbitrage. Do you have any other stories of people and how they've approached this?
Yeah, I would say, I know a lot of people with not only on the saving side of things, but thinking about like I did, looking and seeing if abroad you can earn more as well as save more, both, then you're really growing the gap. And so, a lot of people I met in Singapore, for example, I met a lot of teachers, and I worked at an Aussie-owned school, actually. So I worked with a lot of Kiwis and Australians that were also doing the same, coming abroad to teach abroad. But I met, people in finance, people, working in commodities, lots of industries who had these nice expat contracts with housing covered and international school for their kids covered. And, so that, I think that is a way to really fast track your savings and also have an adventure in the meantime.
You've geo-arbitraged in Mexico, Thailand, and Bali. Do you have a favorite, and what are the kind of differences?
Yes, I really love all three of those countries. And we found that we spent about $50 USD each per day, sharing accommodation, my Australian partner and I. But we found the quality of life in Bali and Thailand is higher than Mexico. So what that $50 bought us was nicer accommodation, nicer restaurants, more access, renting, more access to better transportation and going to classes. And yeah, we prefer, and we also feel a little safer in Asia. I mean, Mexico is perfectly safe. A lot of places in Mexico are. It kind of depends on where you are in the country. But we do like Mexico, but we feel like in comparing Bali and Thailand, we feel like Bali also gets us a better quality of life a bit than Thailand. But we love both, and we'll spend part of every year in Thailand as well.
Most weight loss programs are short-term fixes, but managing your weight needs a long-term solution. And that's what makes Noom different. Noom uses science and personalization to help you manage your weight for the long term. Their psychology-based approach helps you build better habits and behaviors that are easier to maintain. The best part? You decide how Noom fits into your life, not the other way around. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com to sign up for your trial today.
A lot of people like us who live in really privileged first world countries worry about going to places like this, and especially things like healthcare. How do you deal with that?
I have a plan with Cigna, and it's a plan out of Thailand, Cigna Thailand, but I feel confident, with a large company like Cigna International Company. It's about 125 USD per month.
Is this insurance, is it?
It is. Mm-hmm. It is insurance. Yeah. It will cover me. It doesn't cover me for small visits. It, has a higher deductible. But really what my concern is, a motorcycle accident, cancer or something major like that. So it will cover me for anything catastrophic. And then, as far as, smaller visits, doctor's office, my annual visits every year, I do that. I go to Thailand and do that. Mm-hmm. I feel like in Thailand, I get better medical care than I do in Bali.
They've got great medical care in Thailand, haven't they?
Yeah. Amazing. And Singapore as well. Yeah. I do.
And dental as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do my dental. I do the smaller things in Bali, but I like to go to Thailand every January because it's rainy season in Bali. So I go there and just do my annual visits.
Yeah.
And, ultimately I feel like my partner and I will, when we're older, we will settle in Australia. So, we will have some coverage there.
Mm-hmm. So who is J.L. Collins, and what is the simple path of investing in US index funds, and what influence did it have on you?
That book, was a great book. I mean, J.L. Collins has been in the finance industry for multiple decades. He really tried to stock pick and beat the stock market, and he found that really just doing broad-based, low-cost index funds was a lot easier. And, often the psychology of the stock market, I know personally, a lot of people, and myself included, is like greed and fear can get me. Like when the stock market's rising, then the greed kicks in and I want to buy. And then when it's falling, fear kicks in and I want to sell. And so, even though, I know better and a lot of people know better, intuitively, we are ruled by those emotions. And so he found that really, a set it and forget it kind of index fund works well. He says, buy the total stock market index fund, buy it often, and just leave it for decades and don't worry about the ups and downs of the market. And for me, that's worked really well. I don't want to read quarterly reports and, try to keep up with stock picking. I know my partner's done, some stock picking in the past, and he's interested in that to a certain degree. But I feel like you can get, there's also something nice about the diversity of, my total stock market index fund has 3,500 companies, and it's nice to have that diversity. So I love that book. Yeah.
At what age did that influence you? And is that what you started investing in when you were saving all this money?
No, I found that book once I found the FIRE movement in 2019 when I was left Bali. I went back to Bangkok to work, and I wasn't very happy there. And I found the FIRE movement, and that book was probably one of the most popular books within the FIRE movement. Also, when I was younger, I was reading about low cost index funds. And so I was investing in, funds that are designed based on a target retirement date. And I did a lot of that, which I don't like that quite as much because I like to be able to sell whatever's high. If stocks are down, then I'll sell my bonds so I that kind of lumps it all together, and you have to sell just, the shares on that index that is designed for a target retirement date. It's the easiest option, but now I do, a total bond market, and then I do a total stock market. And that way I can kind of sell what I want to sell.
Yeah. So it simplifies your investing as well, I guess, doesn't it? You don't have to think about it. You can just keep adding to it as you can, or drawing down as you need.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So now that you're engaged to an Aussie, so you're engaged, you're not,
yes.
You said you've been together for a long time though, have you? And then finally decided to do it officially?
Yes, 5 years. And both of us have never been married. So I'm 46 and he's, in his early 50s. So this is it's quite a big decision.
And so you've been learning about the Australian share market, haven't you? Because of, obviously, he's influencing you about this.
Yes, a bit. I mean, I'm still learning, but he sold his property. He bought a property and had it in Brisbane for 25 years and got tired of managing it internationally. So he sold it recently. So he came into a bit of money that we've been looking at how to invest it. So we're also, he has individual stocks in Australia. And he's pretty heavily invested in Australian stocks. So we are going to do some index funds just to balance out the portfolio, and, probably just do the Vanguard Australian Share Index, VAS, and some of the VTS, a little bit of the US Total Stock Market Shares Index, and maybe some of the global market index. But, again, it's still, even those global market index, it's pretty heavily US based. So we might do a little bit of emerging markets and emerging markets index or something like that. But we're trying to figure out at this point, like, how do we reinvest that money? And we want it to be more passive and not have to worry about it too much or not look at it too often.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? The number of different styles of index funds that you can get. Like, you can get a total US S&P 500 index, and then you can get another one which is everything in the world apart from the US. So it's so easy to diversify across different regions, isn't it, nowadays?
Yes. Yeah. And what I like about, the index funds is, I know in the past, at least, like, I will get analysis paralysis trying to figure out what's, and I'll keep and I've done this before where I've kept my money out in a bank account, and not earning anything. And I feel like mostly, I'm losing money by not investing it and just trying to, over analyzing it. So I feel like it's good to just put it in and trust that over decades, it's going to go up.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Balinese fire freedom retreats that you run. How many have you done so far?
This is my first one.
Oh, this is the first one.
I'm
okay.
super excited. Yeah. I heard, I was teaching during the pandemic in Thailand, and I was going down this fire rabbit hole, listening to all the podcasts and reading all the books and, learning kind of the principles of it. And I heard about all the events in the US, and I thought there needs to be something on this side of the world where I've lived for the last 2 decades. And, I know there's, a couple, I think there was a FinFest in Australia and Sydney last year in November, a couple single day events, but not really anything multi-day, which I really feel like something special happens on the second or the third day when people gather together in a community. I feel like I can learn a lot on podcasts and books, but when my dad unfortunately had a stroke, and when I left Bangkok, I came back to the US for 9 months and was, helping out my dad. And I went to 6 fire events, multi-day, like, 3 days to 4 day events during that time. And it was magical. I mean, the community is really special. And so I had the idea in Bangkok, but really when I attended those 6 multi-day events, I really saw the power of community. And I'm so impressed with the people. They're some of the smartest, most creative, most generous, supportive community I've ever met. They got on my
resourceful.
They got on my
well.
spreadsheets. They logged into my Vanguard account. They looked at my asset allocations. People just giving their time for free. One woman as a nurse practitioner, a healthcare expert, met me on Zoom for free just to talk about healthcare. People are so generous. And I was inspired by that. And so I really believe in the power of community. And, the speakers are great. But all the conversations I had with the other participants, it's a really money savvy group. People who'd worked on Wall Street, people who are very knowledgeable. I learned just as much from the other participants as I did from the speakers. So I was excited to come back to Bali and create an event there.
And what do you talk about at these events? I mean, you're talking about investing, but obviously people are going to be talking about their own financial independence journeys and some of the tools that they use. Give us some examples.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about real estate. They talk about, index investing. We don't have it's not big onto crypto. People will talk about crypto, but it's a small percentage of people's portfolio, maybe 1 or 2%. It's not like a crypto crowd at all. It's mostly people thinking about diversifying their portfolio and investing in things that are quite safe and have shown a lot of potential, over a lot of history. A lot of people talking about living their best life and really not only their money, but how do they value their time and their energy and what really brings them happiness and how can we spend more time with family and giving back and contribution and community. So it's not a place where you get people trying to sell to you from the stage or you get people trying to pawn some kind of product on you at all. It's really people coming together and supporting each other on their own fire journey and inspiring and motivating each other.
Presumably it'd be difficult to sell anyone to a financial independence person anyway, because they're so careful with their money.
Yeah. And it's, most people are, doing the low cost index funds, with low management fees. So, it's kind of the boring type of investment, but, and also people are talking about, it's not only, investing, but saving and how to earn more. So a lot of people are talking about entrepreneurship, side hustles, that kind of thing.
And there's a lot of people in Bali as well in the hospitality industry, aren't there, that are running restaurants and clubs and so forth?
Exactly. Yes, yes. Yeah, a lot of, business owners. And to be clear, I don't know if you're asking about my retreat, but most of the people coming to my retreat are not currently living in Bali. And
I was going to ask about that the people that are coming internationally, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. The retreat sold out really fast. And a lot of people are coming from the U.S. I have sold tickets to some Australians and some Singaporeans, but it's mostly people from developed countries that are coming. So I'm excited to kind of unite the Australian fire community with the U.S. fire community. And that's going to be fun. But a lot of people want to come to Bali, and especially there's quite a few people who are already retired, and they're retired early. They're very money savvy. And so they've got the time and the money. And so they're going to come over for a month and do things before and after the event as well.
So who are the speakers at the event?
I've interviewed 24 speakers, and all but 3 of them want to come. So I haven't confirmed them all yet, because the last 2 weekends I went to 2 fire events in the U.S. I went to Economy, which is an event with about 400 people. It's kind of a TEDx kind of style stage with hundreds of people in the audience, specifically related to the fire movement. But yeah, I've got Joe Saul-Sehy coming from the Stacking Benjamin show. He's written the book Stacked as well. And he produces multiple podcasts in the U.S. Such a nice guy, really heart-centered community member. And then I've got Lisa Peterson, who wrote Millionaire Mindset. And she's got 2 podcasts as well. Also a great speaker. She worked with high net worth clients, financial advisor for 25 years, and realized even with these high net worth clients, a lot of them still didn't feel safe with money. And so she knows a lot of the nuts and bolts of finance, but she also deals with mindset and our relationship to money. And a lot of the participants, that's primarily what they're interested in. I mean, they've built a pretty big nest egg, most of them. So they were also interested in talking about life optimization, relationship to money, those kind of topics as well.
So you're looking at opening up more places for people to come in, and especially to encourage people from Australia to come. So
yes.
What can you tell listeners who might be interested in coming to Bali for this?
I will say that there is so many benefits to coming to an event like this. And I personally felt that when I went to these events. And that's why I attended 6 in 9 months, because it is an investment, I feel. I've walked away from each event with a tip that has ended up saving me. One event in California, I got a job where, I'm teaching online now, kids with ADHD. Another event, I got an idea about tax loss harvesting and tax gain harvesting, which ended up saving me money long-term on my taxes. I felt inspired on my journey by the people I've met. I've gotten financial and, not advice. It's not official advice, right? Tips from people who know more about money than I do. And so I feel it's an investment, not only hearing the speakers, but connecting to the community, building lifelong friendships. For me, I love these kind of events, and that's why I'm so excited to create one in my own home. And then we're going to be having adventures together in Bali. We're going to, go do fun things around the country. A lot of people are sticking around afterwards. There's really an opportunity to build friendships and unite the fire community internationally.
So how can listeners find out more?
They can go to FIFreedomretreats.com.
How do you spell that? Yeah.
So FI stands for financial independence. So FI, freedom, and then retreats with an S.com. And again, it is sold out, but I have held a few places for Australians, because I've got the American spots sold out really quick, and I wanted to have some more spots for Australians. And if your listeners would like to go to my contact page, they can sign up for the mailing list, and then they can be the first to know when those spots open up. I will prioritize Australians. I do have a lot of Americans on the wait list, but I will prioritize it. I feel like, it will be a much more diverse and rich conversation to have a really truly international audience there. And, we'll be having an event in 2024 as well. So I'm very excited about that too.
And this is in Ubud, isn't it?
It is. Yes. Yeah. That's where I live. So it's, I'm so excited to showcase my home. And I came to, I know a lot of your listeners have been to Bali already, and I'd been to Bali dozens of times, having lived in Singapore for many years. But there's something special about living there, and something I never saw as a tourist. So I'm happy to show listeners and participants, another side of Bali that they may not have seen.
Amy Minkley, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for having me, and thank you for, expanding financial literacy to your audience and what you're creating in the world.
Thanks for listening to Shares for Beginners. You can find more at sharesforbeginners.com. If you enjoy listening, please take a moment to rate or review in your podcast player, or tell a friend who might want to learn more about investing for their future.
Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.